And we are live. Welcome back with the next edition alongside Anuj, who we had a very interesting chat with the last time. Anuj is an AI veteran and has worked at the highest levels across various stakeholders, including board members, founders, and VCs, and has an extensive experience on the ground. That brings me to my today's opening question. What are the contrarian point of views that you have in the field of AI, Anuj?
So today, if you see, right, there is a lot of hype around AI, right? Now, and that's primarily because of the potential this technology. I don't think so. We have seen any technology which can have the kind of impact that is possible, which is possible from AI. Where this gets my my contrarian point of view comes largely having done this for almost 20 years is that it is still fairly applied research rather than much like software engineering. You still need to do fair amount of figuring out to make the entire system work. Right from and not just from a technical point of view, right? I mean, right from strategy, vision, should we be doing it? Where should we be focusing? What are some of the use cases we should be picking? Right? Should we just take AI and hammer everywhere? I think just today I was seeing a video which was where somebody said AI is the new mayo, put anywhere and everywhere, right? That doesn't work. That just doesn't work. You need to be very careful. So that's one, right? Two, we still need to understand that while a lot of these foundational models have improved intelligence, I would say off the shelf, you can't just solely depend on them. You can, it's almost like you can get started with them, but eventually you'll have to build on your own. Right? So I can start like a e-commerce site and sell other people's stuff, but eventually I'll have to get into white labeling at some point of time, right? And the moment you do that, the most important thing becomes is data and data sets. So it's only a handful of companies who truly understand what it takes to build the level of data sets that are needed to train very good models. And third, I would say all of this takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey.
Right.
Right? You start from one point where you might use something off the shelf. And that is how maybe it's a great starting point. But you cannot build $1 billion venture based on a third party. Right? So specialized models still do better than generalized models. And specialized models would mean compute and data sets. Both are very hard to combat in today's world.
You made multiple interesting points, Anuj. Um, of course, like specialized models doing better than generalized models. I think that's a fair thing to say. But the point about this being a very applied field and the approach is very, very applied, the question becomes where is it being applied practically. I think a lot of the first line application and the first line data sets on which the models have been trained are from the Western countries, is from either the US or Europe. And a lot of it is around English language. When you talk about linguistic data sets, the behavioral data sets, yeah, it's from the US society or European society where the culture is very different. The consumer behavior is very different. The problems are very different, right? Yeah, like how do you combat that? I mean, all of that was powered through data, and they were, of course, ahead in getting onto the various computer applications. So there was a lot more data that was already generated for the US market, and India and the developing countries were definitely not as ahead in the computers race. So we don't have as much data even generated. On the top of that, a lot of our population doesn't speak English and they are not IT enabled still. With, of course, Geo and the 4G proliferation, that has changed. But it's the applied side of it, it's very US centric. How do you see this play out in Indian startups?
So one couple of things, right? I think today the gap between the Valley and India is not much. So it is not like earlier times that you have to be a couple of years before that kind of a technology or that kind of ideas will come. Today, owing to the way digital world, right? It's just a matter of couple of hours. Two, you also have to understand that part of the promise AI has is to be able to augment humans. And we all know that the labor in the US and the European markets is much expensive
Yeah,
as compared to the other markets. Third, AI is all about data. Right? So English is the largest spoken language in the world, which means collecting data around that or what is being used by the large part of those populations is easy. But I don't see, I mean, in India, I already see some lot of terrific efforts, right, to build. As a matter of fact, India is one of the most uniquely poised place to apply AI, and I'll tell you why. I mean, the real magic of AI unfolds at scale. So if you're doing something for 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, it may not make so much difference. But when you have a very large population and which has a lot of diversity, that is where you can't create rules. Right? So even if you think of number plates in India, right? Just a couple of years ago, there were all kind of number plates in India. There was hardly any standardization, right? How do you can't create rules, and whenever you can't create rules, yet you want to automate, AI is the natural choice for it. So from that sense, when I look at India, India is the ideal point of application because of scale and diversity. Right? And there is no, I don't see there's anything called catching up, catching up. I mean, see, you have to understand that when it come to companies and industries, right, they are driven by revenue. And I think Girish had said this beautifully that earning a dollar is far easier than earning a rupee. Right? So getting something to sell in India is the hardest piece.
yeah, beautifully said. Like the cost structures are so frugal here. People will just not let go of their money.
Absolutely. Right? So it's only for that reason you might not see a lot of commercial applications coming up. Right? But if
Hmm.
you look at the efforts that are done by the folks at Bhashini, folks at IITM Madras, the folks at government, they are very, very clear. This is the technology of future. And this is how I think there is this very interesting project whereby they figured out that government has a lot of schemes, but in order to avail these schemes, people need to fill up the forms. And because of various reasons, education, interface, and other reasons, internet, a lot of people are not able to fill up these forms. So I think a bunch of folks are creating these interfaces via which using AI you can fill up these forms via voice directly. But it's such a beautiful application. Now imagine so many people being able to leverage those kind of help from the government directly.
Okay, so let me tie this back to a couple of things that you said. Specialized models are better than generalized models, and you need both compute and data um, to win. Now, given that India specific data sets are still coming up and the generalized models are not trained specifically for India, how does a startup or an early company do this right? From what you're saying, only the large and very institutional scale efforts can train their own models originality, they can bring in originality and they can get in specialized models, but those specialized models then have to become open for everybody else to use, right? Like a small company cannot expect themselves to gather so much data and then train. So how do you see that play out? Like where are the data sets originating? Where are the models originating today in India? Is it just governments? Is it just large companies?
No, I think data set is happening across. Right? Of course, government has this very crucial role to play because some of the access, purely from an access point of view, right? So government has this platform. I'm not able to recall the name exactly, but there is this platform where almost every data set that the government can provide is provided. Now, of course,
Hmm.
these are not may not be comprehensive. That is still a work in progress, right? But the very fact that there are people like Nandan Nilekani who are part of the Niti Aayog and all, right? The bases are all covered. They understand this like nobody else. As a matter of fact, there is a team of Nandan who is working on DPI, digital public infrastructure. And the fundamental thesis is that 50 years ago, oil became such a dominant commodity. In a couple of years from now, compute will become that. Can India be ahead of that race? Not even yet par, I would say ahead of that race. So some of these folks are already working towards these things. They understand this better than anyone, right? From the point of models and startups, see again, you'll have to figure out these startups are serving which kind of a customer. A lot
Right.
of startups today are still serving the US and the European markets primarily from a revenue point of view. And for them, the starting point then is to take one of these publicly available models or APIs, right, and start working from there onwards. Of course,
Right.
in parallel, you'll have to create your own data sets. You will have to. And that's the work you have to start in parallel. You can't be like, okay, let me run this way and then 2 years later I'll start. No. If, if that AI feature or AI capability is core to your company, you'll have to invest in it from day one. And today, acquiring two things take the longest amount of time: data and compute, and then maybe even talent. Okay? So, whatever is available, you have to start working with this, right? That is what a startup is all about, right? Being able to hustle around whatever is available.
Yeah.
Let's start with the API of chat, eventually picking up maybe some public domain, open source model, fine tuning it, right? Maybe fine tuning only last 2 layers, fine tuning last 10 layers, fine tuning last 30 layers. Right? So gradually, when you fine tune the entire model, it's almost like training from scratch in that sense of it, right? So, but that's a journey, and that journey is dependent not just on these two aspects, which is data and compute. It is also dependent on the most important aspect: is your central product or service getting the traction? Because
Hmm.
if there is no point of training if people don't even want or are not willing to pay for it.
Yeah, so that was my next question. Like, how does the cash flow work? Because Indian society is the hardest, as you said, to generate revenue. Because people are happy by not paying money. I was like trying to frame it, but I don't know how to say it the best. Yeah, people are not willing to spend. How does a startup acquire compute and data and have their product get traction and make money? Like, this seems like an impossible combo.
I mean, building startups is not easy. I think Reed Reed Hoffman put it beautifully right. That building a startup is like jumping from a cliff and then assembling a plane on your way down, right? Uh, so it's incredibly hard. See, typically you will get compute as part of credit, which typically comes as part of the funding,
Yeah.
right? Uh, Data set is something you have to start working in that, right? But
Hmm.
you see, this is a chicken and egg problem, right? Unless you have data, you can't build your own models. Unless you have your own models, you can't go to the market. If you can't go to market, you can't sell. If you can't sell, right? So the way to break this cycle is
Hmm.
start from whatever is available off session. So maybe first start using Chat GPT or LLMs of the world as your base models. Quickly assemble a solution around it. Go to the market, start selling it. One, it will quickly be a validation whether the core hypothesis, which is even more harder to prove, right? That we are building something that is a painkiller, people will pay for it,
Hmm.
and people will refer it. Then the network effect, right? That's the hardest thing to prove, right? So this is where you will have to quickly go test, and the greatest validation for that is the number of paying customers. As they will pay, they'll demand better from you. As they'll demand better from you, you'll have to start producing better models. So that is when
Right.
you start maybe fine tuning, creating a whole system, creating a bunch of models. At some point of time, you would have spent enough to know, okay, Now I know this is a major, major pain point. We are on the right track, everything, and we have also created a very large data. Now let us start to train our in-house models. So gradually take, right. So it's same as how typically countries work, right? If something is very crucial, you buy upfront, but gradually you try and build in-house.
Right.
It's the
And
same.
remove that imports dependency. Yeah.
So the same thing happens.
Okay, interesting. This makes more sense now. So the narrative is that you start with general purpose models, but set your eyes on the specialized models, and it's a ladder. You have to climb the steps. The first step might be a general purpose model, but that will not survive, let you survive for long. With this, let's consider companies who are doing AI. Either they are an AI service provider, or even better, they are an AI consumer where they want to buy AI from somebody. What are the three biggest mistakes that you see people do today on the ground? People being the business leaders, basically. What mistakes, what misbeliefs do they have about AI?
So one is that this is a very mature technology that I go buy, plug and play. Okay? It is not. It is far from it. Right? So it's not a turbo engine that you can tie to your car and it will become a Ferrari. No, you have
Right,
to, and I think there's a analogy I actually used last time also. You'll have to open up your entire car and then fit in that whole engine, and that takes time, right? That's one, right? Two, we have a great technical team. Let us build AI. AI is a time and a resource intensive journey. The best thing I have actually found is to quickly buy and start using it. See where it leads. Does it even lead to the kind of outcomes you're looking at? And when you have figured out everything else, right, then start building it internally. If it is so crucial to you, why do you want to build it from day one? So the way people see it is as either or. I say, why don't you do two things in parallel? So I need food today, but I haven't grown anything. I mean, now you can't grow food overnight, right? So what will you do? You'll put two teams. One that will start plowing the field, start sowing, right? Do all of that stuff. But that will take 6 months. So you
right,
also put a team which is in procurement. Buy it because you can buy in today's. I mean, that is what globalization has done, right? You can buy things off the shelf immediately. So buy it
right,
very quickly. Figure out whether it's working, not working, right? So I've seen a lot of leaders. One, it's a plug and play. Two, if we are a great tech company, if we are not doing ourselves, it is a shame. They almost kind of make it a ego issue, right?
hmm,
The point I'm saying is that's correct, but why are you choosing one of the two paths? The best way to actually do is do both in parallel.
right. By making it an ego issue, if you're only hell bent on farming, you'll starve to death. You'll not survive.
Correct. And you're also right that if you as a tech company, and this is so important, if you're buying from outside, you're dependent.
Yeah, like how will you have control? One, you're dependent, but also you lose control because can you fine tune it? Can you make it more aware of the context of the domain that you're operating in?
Absolutely.
Uh,
That is two, I would say. Right? The third is that, in my humble opinion, that I've seen is that uh, they still compare it with the human brain. So they're still expected to reason it out. Okay? So there's this famous argument of causality versus correlation. So causality says that because A happened, therefore B has. So
yeah,
A
the cause
or
of the B happening is A.
A.
Yeah,
The other is A and B have happened together.
yeah. There is no causal relationship
There is
either
no
ways.
causal relation. Now today, all the AI is all about correlation. So all the LLMs, I mean, by very definition, the language model is basically nothing but a fill in the blank. You look at some words to the left, some words to the right, and you make it fill the word in the middle. That's how these models are basically trained. All they do is correlation. If I see this and this must be the most likely option. Now, when you do this probability on such massive data sets, you get a lot of things right. But just because a parrot is able to give all the answers does not mean the parrot have started to think like you.
Right.
So,
It can only answer what it has seen in the data set. What it has not seen, like a word that has not appeared, it can't make sense of the word and probably fill it in. It probably requires one more layer of.
so to a good extent, it can also, but that also does not mean that it is doing a reasoning. Just because I got an answer right does not mean that I know the logical explanation of
Okay.
it, right. If I have crammed everything, then also I can do that. So all
Hmm.
these LLMs are nothing but parrots that have been crammed on some of the largest data sets on Earth.
Oh, I love this word. It's so intuitive. Like a model has basically crammed all the data. Like, yeah.
So just because it is getting all of that right does not mean that it has the reasoning capability,
Okay.
which has implications on the kind of use cases. There are use cases where that cramming is good enough. Right? So you need to understand that as well. So where you're applying then becomes a very crucial point. So I would say these three as the three most things that I've often seen a lot of VC CXOs founders make a lot of mistakes. So one is that this is a very mature technology. Oh, people are talking to it so much plug and play like from Python and all of this. Like no, far from it. Try and build a AI system. You're in for a good music for next 2 to 6 years easily. Proper
Hmm.
AI. Right? Second is that uh, build versus buy part. And third
Yeah.
is that these are like human. Who I have given it all the mistakes it is making it to learn. These are all human traits.
Right. Yeah. First two examples are, I think, clear enough. The third one, can you take examples? For example, for what use cases is the cramming good enough? Or rather, let's start with for which use cases the cramming is not good enough, but people still think that they can use it, and that's where the misbelief lies. So yeah, what wrong usages have you seen where the cramming is not good enough, but people still try?
Part of it is also related to the cost of mistake. Right? Now, so imagine you're trying to apply this in medical tech.
Yeah, the cost of the mistake is very high.
The cost of a mistake is very high, right? Now that also you can view from two lenses, right? Now imagine you're applying AI in Africa. Now one argument you can give is there are anyways no doctors,
Ah,
so that
okay.
person is anyways gonna die.
Then the cost is not high. Like we are still net positive in terms of impact.
So let's take our chances, even if it is 95% right. Out of those 100, those 95 will get it, right? Now imagine you do this in a US market. Now there the legal regulations are very strong. By looking at an X-ray, the machine said, I mean, highly likely it's a case of cancer when it was not, or vice versa. That and imagine this is wrong,
Yeah, it's a legal nightmare. Like
right?
the company will probably
So
die,
the,
drown in lawsuits.
the financial liability that will come out of this
Hmm.
can kill a startup overnight. Absolutely. Okay. So it's also important, right? Uh, they are trying to go towards reasoning side of things. I mean, I think there is a recent effort by DeepMind team where they're trying to train a system on all the Olympiad maths problems. Okay? Now, it turns out that it is able to solve some of them,
Okay.
which is astonishing, right? Because it still doesn't have an concept of reasoning as we do in mathematics. But it seems the fundamental hypothesis that if you give lots and lots and lots of data,
Mhm.
you can still clear the exam with 95% mark.
Oh, wow. So, okay, this is like very non-intuitive. It does not have the reasoning skills, but
Right?
you feed it the data, and it's still able to solve a significant number of problems, seemingly like able to solve in the air quotes.
Correct.
But it's not solving.
And and what you would see, I think, is unfold is that as we go further towards AGI, that part of the effort will also be towards what is even human. I don't think so. We even understand today how does brain itself work. While we are trying to mimic a human being, that is what a AI is all about.
Right.
So I think that will also unleash a different level where we'll have more nuanced understanding. Right? Tomorrow we might even come up with by saying that there's no one level of understanding, but there are different levels of understanding. And there are X levels that can be solved by cramming itself, which is what AI today is, right? But then there are others that maybe it may not be. Again, right? I mean, who knows where all of this is going to go, right? But for me, so think of, right, when you were learning mathematics, your teacher must have asked you, "Have you understood this concept?" Correct?
Yes.
How do you define a concept?
It's the theorem which, like,
A theorem is not a concept. So we don't even know in the terms of understanding. Likewise, even in the AI world, when you say a AI system has understood, that means it should understand all concepts that exist in that world that it is trying to solve, right? So even if it is cat versus dog kind of a universe, there are concepts that it must understand. Today, there is no mathematical definition or notion of concept. There is no way to test whether a model has learned a particular concept or not. How many concepts that a model has learned? How many it still doesn't understand? So there is no way to do all of this.
isn't a truth basically a statement that is proven right that becomes a concept, right?
No. So
Um,
I might give you 10 statements. All of them might be from same concept. So addition is a concept.
right.
Subtraction is a
Oh,
concept.
okay.
So if I give you ten sums of addition, you got all 10 right. You have understood one concept, which is addition. That does not mean that you have understood all the concepts of basic maths, right? Maybe say the four operations.
Right.
If you go to say the Khan academies of the world, right? To do Khan academies and all, you'll find that the questions increasingly test various concepts. So there seems to be an intuitive notion.
But I'm not able to put my finger on it.
Correct.
Like, is it the technique? Like, addition becomes a technique, and then
So we
like
don't even know at an intuitive level. Forget about having an equivalent of that in the AI world. But understanding has always been equated to how many concepts you understand. This particular
right.
question tests your knowledge of this particular concept from physics. Correct? So we have always equated understanding or understood understanding itself in terms of concepts. So I think we are still, I mean, there is a lot to happen in this
We are
whole
talking about the misbeliefs and the mistakes on the ground that business leaders are making about AI. Taking a leap from there, if you had to name three wrong reasons for someone to think about AI for their business, what would be those three wrong reasons be?
one that you try and apply to any and every aspect of it. Right? So you
Hmm.
try and make a mayo out of it. Right? Uh, you must pick the most important part. Right? And in my humble opinion, directly start thinking deeply how AI can impact your revenue. Right? Rather than trying to go after a call center or this or that. So AI as a cost cutting doesn't necessarily do such a great job. But AI does a great job, can do a great job again, right? Depending on the scenarios, of course, right? In kind of improving your top line itself. So one is trying to apply it anywhere and everywhere. Two, trying to apply it to the wrong use cases. Right? And I would say three is then the how part of it. Once you have figured out where to go about it, right? Then how do you apply it? And that has lot of uh, nuance point. How are you building your teams? How are you building data infra as a whole, right? How are you seeing it? Are you seeing it as a sledgehammer to solve all your problems? So AI is the way I often coach founders is that look at AI as a Swiss knife rather than a sledgehammer. A Swiss knife will have a lot of different tools, each one were for a very specific use, but together it makes it very powerful, right? So that's some of the things I would say to keep in mind, especially when you're early in your journey.
Okay, let's go deeper. You mentioned applying it for the wrong scenarios. Can you give examples? Like, what are the wrong scenarios, or on the contrary, what are the right scenarios? The same question can be applied on your first suggestion, where you said apply it on your top priorities. But the top priority can be very hard, right? So now there is a balance between a top priority that's also feasible in the AI world. It can't be infeasible in the AI world. It might be top priority for you, but then it's not the right combo.
So
So yeah,
I would say, okay, so look at things where even if you make a 2% improvement, right, it will make a lot of dent and let us try and think, right? One of the most surprising use cases of AI that has emerged, and in my humble opinion, the most powerful, is the world of drug research. Now, finding a drug is a very hard and a very expensive business, right? The amount of time and the amount of money it takes is some crazy numbers up. You could be in for 20, 30 years and a billions of dollars. Now, people have got to a point whereby AI can conjure molecules for you, right? If you describe certain properties, you would want these molecules to have. Which means you can have candidates which AI is creating for you, which finding them would have taken 5, 7, 10, 20 years, who knows, right? So that's
yeah,
such a beautiful, beautiful use case. As a matter of fact, you'll be surprised that today, some of the largest AI teams today, other than the top tech companies, I would say if we leave the top 4, 5 tech companies in the world, are actually at the pharma companies of the world, the Johnson and Johnsons and the GSK, because it is such a huge pain for them that even if you improve, imagine you're able to reduce cost of a drug by 2%. It's a massive, massive delta. I
yeah.
will now give an example of a possibly the most popular use cases of AI, but in my humble opinion, a wrong one. Okay, starting a company that is into the business of building chatbots and selling that as a product. Now, a lot of companies are doing it. Why do I say it's a wrong business? Because ultimately, what is your value prop to your end customer? A, you are today using a human to do customer support. That human can be replaced by our bot.
Yeah, chatbot. Hmm.
Now, customer support chatbots. What is the human cost? In a global world, you can get that for a $300 to a $400 per person in a APAC market. So even if you're a US company,
Yeah,
large parts of your customer support operation might be in the APAC region or the Africa region, right? Or the other markets of the world, right? Or maybe the global south of the world, as they call it, right? Uh, what is going to happen? So then, what you're saying is, hey, we will replace a resource for you, which costs you $400. So the moment you position it this way, straight away there's a cap on the pricing that you can charge. You can only charge up to $400 because that is what you are replacing, right?
no, but the replacement might have other side effects, right? For example, the turnaround time, the accuracy, the quality of response.
I'll,
All of those might improve as well.
I will come to that. Now, in most organizations or not, customer support is seen as a cost center, right? One might say, hey, we care a lot about this metric, that metric, and all of that. Bottom line is, they are all like, we have to do it because we have to. It's a cost center. Right? Two,
Correct.
understand the point that these AI systems will never be perfect, so they'll still keep on making 3, 4, 5% mistakes. To cover up that, you need human in the loop. So now you have to integrate all your AI system with a human in the loop, right? And the biggest problem with today's AI systems is that they don't know when they are going wrong. They will answer all the questions with very high confidence. Or rather, I've seen they answer wrong questions with lot of confidence, and sometimes they answer right with a not so high confidence, which
Yeah,
means it
the
is very tricky to find when are they going wrong. The only way you can find it is when the your end user starts to show signs of frustration, right? Which
yeah.
could be body language, which could be in the words they are using, or other forms, direct or indirect. Which means you need secondary systems to be able to catch these signals and then say, oh, looks like we are not working for you. Let me transfer it to our human agent, right? Now, for all of this, what are you charging? Or what can you charge the max? For a $400. So while it seems a very natural use case, right? The fact of the matter is, and we have already discussed, right, that building AI models is an expensive process. So can you really cover all your costs, all your margins, and everything in trying to charge $400 as opposed to being able to move 2% of the drug discovery cost, which is almost like some 20 years and a couple of $1 billion as hard cash, right? So
No,
this is
but and you can't possibly be saying that everybody should do only pharma related AI.
no, no.
There are other use cases as well, right?
What I'm
Uh,
saying is look at scenarios where you can drastically improve your revenues
Rather than marginally improve.
rather than optimize. So in business there's a concept of top line and bottom line, right? Uh, the example of pharma was improving the top line, right? Because very early you can say, okay, certain drugs are not going to work, or here are certain compounds that we can try.
Yeah, it's actually improving the bottom line, right? Because if a drug doesn't work, and if you spend a lot of money in discovering that it doesn't work, that's your research cost. So that's your operating
That
cost, which
is
is
okay.
the
But look at the other way around. Imagine I found a new compound which humans were never able to find, and now I am using that to create a new drug. Hasn't it opened a new business line for me altogether?
sure, yeah. So that adds to your top line directly,
Correctly.
which could not have been possible through the human route. Sure, okay.
While the latter is the example of optimization of the bottom line. So usually, so far in my journey, one of the things I've seen is that in bottom line, it's almost like you expect X. What you end up typically is X by 5 or so, 20% of it. That is the amount you are able to move.
Anuj, how about the pooling, basically? If to take an example, I'm not sure what the right jargon is here, but to take an example, let's say you have a team of 100 people in your support team, right? But your support needs are highly seasonal, or even worse, they are throughout the year, but not throughout the week. Maybe specific days of the week, maybe the weekends are very high. You can't employ people for 2 days. So you have to employ a large team. And a chatbot, because you're paying on a per transaction or a per usage basis, that makes the pricing dynamic and thereby cutting into your bottom line and lowering it.
See, if you can get into scenarios where you can charge higher, nothing like it, right? So imagine instead of customer support, you do sales support, right? Which means every time you're talking, you're converting, right? That's an additional income for the company, right? So, so one, I mean, to be honest, most customers and call centers actually work on a roster shift. Otherwise, you kind of outsource all these operations. right? So the point whether you can hire for 2 days a week, that is how they typically work. Okay. Second is that if you can, all I all I gave is example that hey, here what looks very feasible, right? Customer support chatbot as a company, which is why you would see that there is no customer support chatbot company in the world which has a great balance sheet. Precisely for this reason, because there is an economics at play. And why is there is an economics at play? Because two reasons. One, AI systems are not perfect, so there is still a human element, right? And then you have to tie the human and the system together, which is a fairly complex world, right? Second point is that building
Yeah.
AI itself is expensive. Now, when you're trying to replace a $400 resource, what are you what are you gonna get? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean the whole premise is that you'll sell it at scale and you won't sell it to one company. You'll capture a pie of the market, so you can afford to train your own model, and then
So,
hopefully you'll be able to apply it.
where
Uh,
it does not work in, it would have worked if you would have served all the customers using a single model, like it happens in a SaaS.
hmm.
But that also doesn't happen because your customer support data is different for client A is different from client B. And at some point of time, you'll start training models on A versus models on B. So, so at some point of time, what you will get in the maturity curve is a very specialized model for a particular client. You might not bring it to a client level, but you will bring it to a vertical level for sure. All the airlines will be handled by this particular model. All the food chains will be modeled, right? Because they are similar in types, right? Which means even if you are serving 40 verticals, you have to maintain 40 models. These are large models, right? And they have their own pain of maintaining and training and all of that stuff. So it's a
Yeah,
very
and the problem is that you have to fine tune. So it's not that you have captured the data and you have fed it in the model and then you're done. No, you have to retain the data. Then when you discover gaps in the model, you have to like push all of the data into the new fine tuned model, and I see where you're going. So then that $400 multiplied by whatever number of humans, it's still a minuscule number for you to be able to do this training again and again. And then there is an operational cost of running it. So it's not like once you've trained it, it's free to run.
plus
It's not.
plus in today's world, talent, compute, and data, all of that are very expensive. So if 5 years from now, when they are all might be very cheap, maybe then it might make a lot of sense. But today, as of today, it doesn't add up at all.
Anuj, but then how are these chatbot companies surviving, right? I get your explanation that this is the wrong use case to target, but then how is the economics not correcting the market, right? How are so many companies surviving?
Yeah, but see, surviving doesn't mean that your balance sheets are great.
Yeah, it might not be sustainable. They
I
might
mean,
exist, but
yeah, there are only handful of them, and they are on a thin ice. That's the reality, right? They don't have the margins like the Googles of the world have or the TikToks of the world have. So that's the
okay, interesting. Sounds good. I think that was the chatbot, which is the wrong
yeah.
place to venture in. Do you
Correct.
have more examples?
I'll have to think. Maybe we can continue I mean, if something comes to my mind immediately.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
generally,
Uh,
wherever you're trying to save, right? Wherever
hmm.
you're trying to do, I mean, my general rule of thumb that I teach to boards and CXOs is that uh, don't try and put it in trying to improve the bottom line. Because if you aim for X, you will end up with not more than 20% of it. That's the delta. So generally, those are not the scenarios where you should try and put it.
So I have a question here. See, I'm still trying to wrap my head around don't try to improve the bottom line and thereby don't try to improve your costs, right? Rather discover a new sales channel,
Yeah.
and thereby improve your top line. One angle of your chatbot explanation actually made me think that, like, don't try to replace humans, but augment humans. Can you help a human tackle the most complex part of that? Like, there might be a lot of data points, and can you help them just lay out the right things in front of them, and then they can go the last mile? But this will also be improving the bottom line, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, think of sales rep, right? If you think of any sales rep today, right? Typically, they have a very fixed script. I'll do A, then I'll do B, then I'll do C, and then I'll close it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
C is a very good point. My customer or whosoever I'm pitching to has come with me to a particular mature point.
Yeah,
Make the particular proposition, close it out. Right? Now in this whole thing, now imagine you're doing this for an enterprise deal. Right? So can you if AI can assist you in understanding the other person's voice,
yeah,
thinking this is the right time, make the take a chance. Right? Why don't you tell him this also? You have said very good things. Now,
yeah,
right? All of this is additional revenue. Imagine this would not have been there, then highly likely that particular sale might not have happened. So when I say top line, I mean either increase your sales or create a new revenue stream altogether, create a new business team altogether. That is what I mean by improving the top line. Rather than saying that, oh, what if I remove a steno? Because today I can do the steno's job using a chat
yeah. By text to speech, speech to text.
and all of that. I mean, whatever, right? There are tools available for that. I'm not saying you don't do that. Fine, you do that as well. But
Can't change your business. Not going to make a dent.
yeah, but you're not gonna see significant gains from it. So that is the point I was trying to.
Okay. The example I had in mind was the loan processing. Today, a good number of chartered accountants and lawyers are employed by the banks, and you have to provide all sorts of documents. Forget the retail loans. Like, housing loans are still like straightforward because you have relatively shorter documents in play. Business loans, where there are large business plans and all sorts of maybe 40, 50 documents involved, their previous like balance sheet, business history, and whatnot. All the chartered accountant is doing is figuring out the interesting bits from a 50-page document,
Yeah,
and then it gets processed. Now this can be replaced by an AI model, but as per your explanation, then this is adding to higher quality sales. Maybe something could not have converted because they were paranoid, but because an AI model is picking the right data points, they can make a more precise decision, and maybe you'll have more converts, definitely faster converts,
yeah,
but more converts as well.
yeah. The
um,
only problem with this example is there is a cost of mistake.
there is a what?
There is a cost of mistake.
Cost of mistake, yeah.
So AI once in a while will just make up things. Especially these LLMs, they are amazingly right. So they they lie with the utmost elegance you can ever come across in the world. Okay. Now imagine in a loan document, you're processing a very large loan, and it makes that one mistake. So then where does that go? Right. Second is that when you decline a loan in a lot of countries, you have to give a logical explanation. So in Europe, there is a law that says that when you decline a loan, you have to tell the end user why a particular loan was declined. Some of these AI models might not be capable of doing the reasoning part. Okay, right? Now you
Got
say,
it.
okay, what is that combination which is a merger of these two? If you look at Gen AI, what does Gen AI does? I will give you a prompt, it will create a video of it or image of it. Right? Now it's a new revenue stream altogether. Right? Two, cost of mistake is very low. Even if the image was not correct, okay, the end user can fine tune the prompt again and give it again. Right? So which is
Right.
why when it comes to content creation, Gen AI is a game changer. And you'll see all the marketing teams used to use a lot of tools, right? To create images. They needed either designers or stock photography and all of that stuff. That is now gone out of the window.
Yeah.
Okay? I had to create videos. Creating a video was never easy, man. Come on. Took so much time, effort, and all of that.
Yes.
That is not reduced. Now think of a more. So imagine you have to hire somebody like a top actor for an advertisement shoot. Now there are two problems with this. One, the shoot is very expensive. Two, that actor can be at a one particular time at a one particular place. Now imagine he has an offer from Nike and Adidas simultaneously, right? Or maybe McDonald's and Nike, not but on the same day. Both both
Yeah.
are
So the,
both are giving billions of dollars. Now
right.
imagine if using AI you can create their avatars, which are legally recognized entities. And these avatars do that advertisement for Nike and for McDonald's on the same day at two different parts of the world. It's a win-win for both the actor as well as for the brand. That flight, that hotel, that entourage, the
Yeah.
timings, right? The shoot means what, 70, 80 people?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that the actor brings the charisma and that attachment with people. That's why they
No, no.
come with high
The
price. But
user cannot recognize the difference between them. How do you know that you are speaking to Anuj or my avatar?
oh, so you're saying your avatar is owned by you, but it's a legally recognized entity of you. But why would you do that? Because
Why not? Because I can
um,
be at 110 places simultaneously.
but then that reduces your value, right? Because now you're available for more. Otherwise,
So,
scarcity would have pushed
uh,
your value up.
I mean, while that's a legal economic argument, but what I'm saying is maybe not. Who knows? I mean, that is still a hypothesis to be tested.
Hmm.
But a lot of people would want Shah Rukh Khan maybe, or why not?
Actually, not for like top end actors like Shah Rukh and so on,
I mean,
but
maybe or
uh,
maybe not. Maybe or maybe not.
I definitely see this argument play out for people who are actually getting enough work, and but they are it's way beyond their time, but they are not at the top end of the food chain. Yeah, just pushing in your avatar will allow you to capture more surface area. So even if you're getting paid lesser, slightly lesser for all of that,
Hmm.
there is still more quantity. So you end up getting more, and it can work. Yeah, of course there are extremes where it's not going to work, but I think the good argument lies in the general case of it.
Or it is like this,
Interesting.
right, that my live classes are more expensive than my recorded. So I also have my avatar. You want a cheaper version? Take that. Or if you want me as a human, then I come at a premium price. I don't know. I mean, again, I mean
Yeah,
these are words that are yet to evolve, right? So I think we are
right.
sitting and ball gazing here, right? But this is very much possible, right?
Interesting. I think the biggest takeaway for me was use the AI to improve your top line rather than improve your bottom line. If it's just improving your bottom line, it's a losing game, and you're not going to get much out of it in
Yeah,
the long run.
yeah. It is not the true impact, right? You are not realizing its true potential. It can do much more.
Yeah,
That is the point I just wanted to.
interesting. Very interesting. Let's conclude it with this, Anuj. As usual, had amazing time chatting with you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bhavin, and thank you so much for the wonderful content. Thanks a lot.